And thank you for joining me again. Today we are going to continue our story, A Boy Called Bat. If you remember, the last time we read chapters 1 to chapter 7, we stopped at the end of chapter 6 actually. And we've met Bat, who lives with his mom and sister. So far, we know that his mom is a veterinarian, and she came home in the last chapter with a little surprise for Bat and Janie. She brought with her a baby skunk. A baby skunk is called a kit. And Mom was very excited about it, and so was Bat. Bat was super excited. If you remember, we could hear him say, I love you to the bat, right? To the skunk. That was a lapsus. Okay. All right, because I was thinking that in the last chapter also, Mom said to Bat, hey, watch out, you're gonna make me jealous. You're saying I love you to the little kid, to the baby skunk. Well, we know that Bat is tender and he absolutely loved the little animal, and he was feeding him baby formula very gently, very carefully. So today we're going to continue our story and see what's going to happen. Okay? Chapter 7, Every Other Fridays. The next morning was an every other Friday. On every other Fridays, Mom drove Bat to his school, and Janie walked to her school just like usual. But in the afternoon, Dad would pick them up. First Bat, whose class let out 20 minutes before Janie's, and they would all go home to his apartment for the weekend. Every other Fridays made Bat uncomfortable, like his skin was on too tight. Bat liked it when things followed a pattern, and every other Fridays broke the pattern. This every other Friday was the worst one Bat had ever experienced. I'm going to stop for a little while here. If you have been paying attention, we notice a behavior that Bat is showing us, characteristics, right? We are learning about Bat, his personality, what makes him unique. And this is another characteristic of his personality as well. Bat is autistic. So those are the behaviors of an autistic child. And it's great to learn about it because we become more familiar with it and more understanding. So let's continue and find out. This every other Friday was the worst one Bat had ever experienced because it meant that it would be 3 days until he saw the skunk kit again. He had begged Mom to let him take the skunk to Dad's house, but Mom refused. The baby skunk needs to be with me, she said. I'll take him to work and the vet techs can watch him while I'm with patients. Besides, Bat, I don't think your dad is a fan of skunks. Bat even tried pretending to be sick so that he could stay home instead of going to school. He told Mom that he had a sore throat and achy ears. Bat hardly ever lied. It made him feel itchy. But even though Mom's patients were animals rather than humans, she was still a kind of a doctor. She shined the light into his ears and made him say "ow" as she looked down his throat. You're not sick, Bat, she said. You just want to stay with the skunk kit. He needs me, Bat whined. Bat, Mom warned, don't let yourself get all worked up, okay? Sorry, said Bat. We can help raise the kid this month as a family as long as you keep on doing all the regular stuff too. School and dads and homework and everything. If the skunk kit is too big of a distraction, then I can get Lawrence to take him home in the evenings. Lawrence was Bats's favorite vet tech at Mom's clinic. He could juggle 5 juggling clubs, and even though he had enormous hands, big enough to hold all 5 clubs at once, he was gentle. He had the deepest voice Bat had ever heard, deep like space. But no matter how much Bat liked Lawrence, there was no way he was going to let him take the kid home after work. My throat feels better, he said. Much better. Mom and Janie and Bat all left the house together. Mom locked the door behind them. She kissed Janie and said, "Look both ways. Have a fun weekend." "Okay, Mom," Janie said. "See you on Monday." Bat climbed into the back seat of the car and fastened his seatbelt. He liked to sit in the middle seat because someone had once told him that it was the safest seat in the whole car. That was one of the things he didn't like about every other Fridays. His dad's car, a fast little yellow convertible, didn't have a middle back seat. It just had 2 side back seats with a hump in between. Mom placed the box with the skunk kit on the front passenger seat. Then she started the car and backed down the driveway. It wasn't a long drive to Bat's school. The distance from their house to his school was exactly 2.3 miles. Bat knew this because he liked his mother to push the button on the dashboard each morning, the one that reset the trip meter. Bat spent the entire 2.3 miles trying to come up with a reason why he shouldn't go to Dad's, even though it was on every other Friday. A reason that wouldn't make his mom give the kid to Lawrence. But he couldn't think of anything. They arrived at his school. "You'll take care of the kid?" Bat asked Mom. "Honey," Mom said, "I'm a veterinarian. Taking care of animals is my job. I promise." Bat nodded. He unbuckled his seatbelt, slid across the back seat, and got out of the car. "Wait a minute," Mom called after him through her rolled-down window. "Aren't you forgetting something?" He had his backpack. He had his lunch. He had his earmuffs. "No," he said. Mom smiled. "You forgot to kiss me goodbye." "Oh, yeah," said Bat. He walked back over to the car and stuck his head through Mom's window. She wrapped her arms around his neck and pulled him close. Her wavy brown hair tickled his nose. "Goodbye, little Bat," she said. "I'll miss you." Then she kissed his cheek. "Goodbye," Bat answered. He walked up to the school's front door, then turned around. Mom was still there, in her car, watching him. He raised his hand and waved. Mom honked the horn at him. 3 light, happy honks, and then she drove away. Chapter 8. 16 Islets. Sometimes Bat wished that Janie went to his school because it would be kind of neat to see her in the hallways and at lunchtime. But most of the time he was glad that his school was something he didn't have to share with her. Janie attended the Robert E. Willett Elementary School, but this was her last year. Next fall, she would be going to junior high school. Bat went to a private school. It had small classes than the public school, and his parents thought it was a better fit for him, which was fine with Bat. Mr. Grayson was a good teacher who never yelled and who usually let Bat wear his earmuffs if things got too loud. Also, his school, the Saw-Whet School, was named after a type of owl. The main hallway of the Saw-Whet School was a busy place until 8:35 a.m., when class officially started. Until then, it was full of parents walking the younger kids, those in kindergarten and first grade, to their classrooms, and older kids walking themselves, all while the principal, Mrs. Martinez, stood outside of the administration office, smiling and being friendly. "Bat!" called Mrs. Martinez, waving and smiling. Bat didn't feel like talking to Mrs. Martinez, so he pretended he didn't see her and slid to the far side of the hallway as he passed. That way, she couldn't reach out and rumple his hair. Bat hated it when people rumpled his hair, and Mrs. Martinez loved to rumple hair. She had never yet rumpled his hair, and Bat wanted to keep it that way. Bat liked the main hallway better when all the other kids were in their classrooms. Right now, Luca and Israel, two kids in Bat's same class, were struggling out of their rain boots on the big rubber mat. It wasn't raining, but dark clouds peppered the sky in a way that could mean that recess would be wet. At Saw-Whet School, one of the philosophies was that students should go outside, rain or shine or snow. Bat hadn't worn rain boots, so he didn't have any that he needed to take off. He didn't carry an umbrella either, because he saw Wet School didn't allow them in the hallways or classrooms, which Bat agreed was a wise decision. He skirted around a kindergartner whose mother was kneeling in front of him, holding a tissue to his nose. "Blow," she said, and he dodged between a couple of big kids, sixth graders, who were tossing a small red rubber ball back and forth. "Balls are supposed to be kept outside," Bat told the slightly smaller of the two big kids, a boy he recognized by the red glasses he wore. "Not this ball," said the boy. "This is a special ball." Then he threw the ball over Bat's head to the other kid, a very tall girl who caught it expertly with one hand and laughed. "It looks like a regular ball," Bat said. "It's not a regular ball," said the boy with red glasses. Bat had a weird feeling in his stomach, like the boy was tricking him. He didn't know what to say. Just then, Luca and Israel came by without their rain boots. "Hi, Bat," Israel said. "Do you think it will rain?" "Maybe," said Bat. "Well, eventually, yes, but today, maybe." Relieved, Bat watched the two big kids move away toward their classroom, still tossing the ball. "What do you think was special about that ball?" he asked Israel. "Nothing," Israel said. Then Miss Kiko came out of the kindergarten room and rang her handbell. It made a gentle, tinkling sound, way better than the harsh, painful scream of Janie's electric school bell system, which Bat had heard last year during a school play he'd gone to watch. To class, it's time for another day." Miss Kiko had a beautiful voice, which was probably why it was her job to announce the start of school. Bat followed Luca and Israel into Mr. Grayson's third grade classroom. "I brought 2 sandwiches for lunch today," Luca was telling Israel, "in case you want to trade cookies for one." Why would I want to do that? Israel answered. I brought my own sandwich. But knew why Luca would think Israel wanted to trade. Yesterday, he had heard Luca tell Israel that she didn't really like her cream cheese sandwiches, and Israel had replied that he didn't like the turkey one his mom always made. I would trade anything for a cream cheese sandwich, he had said. He listened to see if Luca would remind Israel of what he had said, but she didn't. Probably Israel was just being nice, Bat interjected. To make you feel better about bringing cream cheese sandwiches to school every day. He probably didn't really want your sandwich. Israel turned around. His face was red, and his eyebrows pointed toward each other, making a wrinkly crinkle in his forehead. Dude, he said to Bat. Bat waited for Israel to say more, but he didn't. Just that one word. Dude! Then Luca started crying, and she shoved past Bat to go back into the hallway. He watched her run into the girls' bathroom. Mr. Grayson came over. He was wearing his bright orange tennis shoes today. Bat liked it when he wore those shoes. It was like he was wearing suns on his feet. What's the problem, friends? He asked. Bat embarrassed Luca, Israel said, really loudly, making Bat wish he had his earmuffs. They were in his backpack on his back. I'm sure you didn't mean to embarrass her, did you, Bat? Asked Mr. Grayson. There were 16 eyelets on each of his shoes. Bat counted. 8 on the left side, 8 on the right side. That made 32 eyelets. Bat, can you look up at my face? Mr. Grayson asked. Bat shook his head. 32 eyelets. His own shoes had half as many. 16 eyelets, 4 on each side of each shoe. Mr. Grayson sighed. Okay, Bat, go sit at your table. Bat wondered if anyone in the class had more eyelets in their shoes than Mr. Grayson. He kept his eyes on shoes as he walked through the classroom. Nope, no one did. Okay, so boys and girls, over here, what do you think? Do you think that Bat meant to embarrass Luca? Did he mean to be rude? Well, what we know from literature about autism and children who have some form of autism, many times they don't understand social clues. And I'm not talking about everybody, and I'm not talking about all of them, right? But in this case, Bat didn't understand what he did wrong. He didn't know. He just said what came to his mind. So he didn't know that he will be embarrassing his friend by saying what he did. Chapter 9. Open Door Baby Cakes Policy. Mr. Grayson was a good teacher for lots of reasons. He let kids eat snacks at their desk if they were hungry. He didn't make students ask permission to go to the bathroom. He didn't believe in making people apologize. You can't make someone be sorry, he always said. And he believed in class pets. That's how he put it. I believe in class pets, he had said on the first day of class when he introduced them to Baby Cakes, the class rabbit. Baby Cakes, a white Angora bunny that looked like a giant fluff ball, lived in a pen in the back of the room, near the bookshelves. It was a big pen with a gate. If anyone ever needs to cuddle, Mr. Grayson said, Baby Cakes is there for you. And that was the thing that made Mr. Grayson the best teacher Bat had ever had. His open door baby cakes policy, which meant that any time a kid needed to cuddle, he or she could go visit Baby Cakes, no permission needed, no questions asked. Baby Cakes liked carrots and apples and put up with cuddling. Bat knew the rabbit liked the treats better than kids, but he also knew that Baby Cakes was smart enough to realize that the two often went together. The thing about Mr. Grayson's open door Baby Cakes policy was that none of the kids wanted to ruin it by overusing it. Bat was Baby Cakes' most frequent visitor. Israel visited the second most often, and then probably Jenny was third. A couple of months ago, Israel had given Bat a drawing he'd done of Baby Cakes. It was pretty good. Bat usually tried to visit Baby Cakes during recess or lunch when a visit wouldn't mean leaving group time. But today, he didn't think he could wait until recess. Maybe because he missed the baby skunk so much. When Mr. Grayson had everyone pull out the money game, Payday, that they played on Fridays, Bat slipped away from his table and headed to the back of the room. Today, Baby Cakes wasn't sleeping. She was just sitting in her favorite spot on top of the plastic hutch where she slept. She looked like white cotton candy. Bat sat close to Baby Cakes and put his hand on her back just to let her know he was there. He didn't want to startle her. Break into groups of 4, Mr. Grayson said. Choose a banker and pay everyone $200. For a moment, Bat thought maybe Mr. Grayson was going to let him skip the game and just hang out with Baby Cakes. But then he said, Bat, 5 minutes. Bat didn't want to play Payday. He didn't want to join the class in 5 minutes. But the open door Baby Cakes policy didn't mean it was okay to skip stuff that the class was doing. It was one of those unspoken rules that Mom was always talking about. Those things that people are supposed to know without having to be told. Bat hated unspoken rules, but he loved the open door baby cake policy. So when 5 minutes later Mr. Grayson said, Okay, Bat, time's up, Bat reluctantly scooted Baby Cakes off his lap where he had set her and rejoined the class. The games were all arranged. Jenny Pearson had dealt out $200 for Bat. Luca Bat saw had returned from the bathroom with red-rimmed eyes. She was in a different group. Ready? Jenny asked. I guess, said Bat, and he sat in the empty seat between Jenny and Raymond. Across from him, Corey rolled the dice. Bat sighed. It was going to be a long day. Chapter 10. A very long day. Bat was right. It was a long day. The rain that had been threatening came, and after they ate lunch, the students pulled on rain gear to splash in puddles. Bat didn't like to get wet. He didn't like it at all. It made his clothes feel sticky and itchy and uncomfortable. Mr. Grayson knew that Bat didn't like to get wet, so even though he saw the wet school philosophy said students should go outside, rain or shine or snow, he asked Bat, Would you like to spend recess helping me clean Baby Cakes' enclosure? Oh yes, said Bat. Mr. Grayson got a trash bag, and Bat scooped the old straw into it. Then they laid out a fresh batch of straw. It smelled like summertime and sunshine. Baby Cakes hopped over to the straw and sniffed it. She looks happy, Mr. Grayson said. She looks exactly the same as she always does, Bat answered. Mr. Grayson laughed. Grown-ups were always laughing at things that Bat didn't think were funny. But it didn't bother Bat very much when Mr. Grayson did it. Julio, a fourth grader who everyone said was a natural athlete, came into the classroom. Mr. Grayson, he said, Principal Martinez wants to know if you're still going to teach yoga. Sure, Mr. Grayson said. Tell her I'm all ready to start. Then he said, Julio, I think you've grown a foot since the last time I saw you. Julio shrugged. Not that much, he said, but I've grown an inch since winter break. I'm not surprised, Mr. Grayson said. That was 3 months ago. Bat thought about time as he followed Mr. Grayson to the yoga room and as he sat on his mat in the butterfly pose. 3 months, he guessed, could be a little bit of time or a really long time, depending on who you were. For instance, a monarch butterfly born in the summer lives only about 6 weeks, so 4 months would feel like forever. But a monarch butterfly born in the winter might live for 8 months, so 4 months would be just half its life. And if you were a boy with a skunk kit that you were only allowed to keep for 1 month, time was sure to pass much too quickly. Bat considered telling Mr. Grayson about the life cycle of the monarch butterfly, but the teacher was busy unlacing his orange high tops and getting ready to lead the group in yoga. He decided he would talk about monarch butterflies with Mr. Grayson later. But the right later never happened. After yoga, they went back to the 3rd grade room for reading circle. After reading circle, they worked on their volcano projects, which Bat had not been looking forward to. Groups of 4 kids had to work together to build a volcano. Mr. Grayson called it collaborative art. Bat didn't like collaboration. He liked to do things himself. That way, if something didn't turn out the way he wanted it to, there was no one else to be mad at. And if he wanted to take it apart and start over, no one could tell him not to. But Mr. Grayson wouldn't let Bat be a group of 1. The problem was that no one else in the group seemed to care as much as Bat did. 3 times before 2:45, when class was finally over for the day, Bat's group said, Mr. Grayson, Bat won't let us help. I don't need help, Bat told Jenny when she complained for a second time. It's a group project, she said. You have to let us help. Israel, who was in Bat's group, kept asking him all kinds of annoying questions, like, Hey, Bat, do you think the lava is red enough? And Bat, can you pass me the paste? Bat ignored the lava question, but about the paste he said, Glue works better than paste. The paste gets all weird and flaky when it dries. Okay, said Israel, pass me the glue then. I'm using the glue, Bat said. Things would go much more smoothly, Bat thought, if the other kids would stop asking questions and interfering and just let him get on with the job. By the time Miss Kiko rang the end of the day bell from the hallway, Bat's left eye felt twitchy. All he wanted to do was climb into Mom's car and go home to his own room. But when he walked outside, he didn't see Mom's burgundy station wagon. Instead, he saw Dad's yellow sports car, and he remembered with a heavy sigh that today was an every other Friday, and he wouldn't get to see his own room or the baby kid for 3 long days. If Bat were a mayfly, he wouldn't even live that long. Chapter 11. Hi, Sport, said Dad. Bat didn't like being called Sport because he didn't like playing sports or watching sports. Bat liked being called Bat because he liked playing with animals and reading about animals and watching videos about animals. But Dad didn't like calling him Bat. When he wasn't calling Bat Sport, he always called him Bixby Alexander. It's a great name, he liked to say. It was an okay name. Bat's first name, Bixby, had been his mom's last name before she got married. Now that she and Dad were divorced, she could have made it her last name again, but she kept Tam instead because, as she said, I gave Bixby to you, and you get to keep it. Bat's middle name, Alexander, was the same as his dad's middle name, and all four of them, Dad, Mom, Janie, and Bat, were Tams, even though they didn't all live together in one house. The rain had turned into a gentle mist, and Dad had his windshield wipers turned on to their lowest setting. You know what we need on a chilly day like this? Dad asked. What? Bat replied. Well, I was thinking that after we pick up your sister, we could all go to Coco's to get some hot chocolate. Do you like that idea? Coco's was the name of Bat's favorite coffee shop downtown. It was nestled in between a bookstore that also sold stuffed animals and a shoe store. Okay, said Bat. They drove under a little bridge and through downtown. Because of the rain, fewer bicyclists crowded the streets, and it didn't take Bat's dad very long to get to Janie's school. Bat recognized her right away. She was standing near the corner wearing her bright yellow rain slicker. Bat admired the way she looked, like a shiny yellow sun. Hi, Dad, said Janie. She tossed her backpack into the seat next to Bat and then slid into the front seat, slamming the door. Hello, my girl. How was your day? Bat relaxed in the back seat as Janie told Dad about her day. He didn't listen to the words of what she was saying, but he liked the way her voice went up and down like music. Dad's voice was nice too. It was lower than Janie's, and it didn't go up and down very much. It was like a straight line. At Coco's, Bat spilled some of his hot chocolate on his shirt when he took off the lid to add cinnamon. Be careful, Sport, said Dad, which was a dumb thing to say because the hot chocolate was already spilled, and being careful now wouldn't unspill it. Bat couldn't enjoy the taste of his drink at all because the only thing he could think about was the wet, uncomfortable stain on his shirt. Dad's apartment was in a complex that had a pool and a workout room. Kids under 13 weren't allowed to use the workout equipment, which Bat thought was unfair. He really wanted to try the treadmill. The apartment was on the second floor. There was an elevator, but Bat preferred to take the stairs. He liked them because there were 2 sets of 11 stairs, and 11 was his favorite number. One day he would be 11, which felt like an exciting thing to be. At the top of the stairs, they turned right and walked around the corner. Then Dad unlocked the door of apartment 2A and they all went inside. Home sweet home, said Dad. It didn't feel like home and it didn't smell sweet. It smells like onions in here, Janie said, wrinkling her nose. Well, that's because the slow cooker made dinner for us, Dad said. Chili. Bat didn't like chili. Dad knew he didn't like it. Bat didn't like mushy foods except for oatmeal with brown sugar. I don't like chili, Bat said. Maybe you'll like it tonight, Dad answered. I tried a new recipe. Unless the new recipe was for a chili that didn't include any chili, Bat wouldn't like it. Bat sighed and shrugged off his backpack. It was going to be a long weekend.